Hello, welcome William in DDDM podcast. It's awesome that you are here today with us. Do you can walk us through your professional background and your connection to the data world?
Hi, Lucas, and thanks. Welcome, everybody. So, I've had a career in data and enjoyed very much. It's been a very dynamic field to be in, for sure. I've played many roles in this software engineer of a product, DB2. We've all heard of it, right? And then several roles in the field, including my last one was VP IT over a large healthcare data warehouse implementation. One of the early data warehouse success stories. And then I launched consulting, been consulting now for over 20 years. And we consult to clients such as pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies, banks, etc., as well as I do quite a bit of analyst work. So a lot of benchmarking lately, past few years. We've benchmarked all the databases, data lakes, data streaming platforms, data observability, et cetera, et cetera. Anything to do with data. So we're actually hands-on analysts in the way that we approach that aspect of our work. So we do both of those things.
Okay, so you have experience with a lot of problems probably your clients have in connection to the data. Could you describe few of them, like what you are seeing on the market right now in connection to the data problems and or challenges your clients have?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I've seen a lot of problems, helped a lot of problems. Some are difficult to help, and some I just observe, and it's like, wow, yeah. If I think for many business problems, if you can get your data act together and improve the maturity of your data, you are far along in terms of being able to support those business problems and help them and get away from them and actually improve the company's maturity as well as its capability in the market. So this takes many forms. Data quality certainly comes to mind. Many clients have quality issues, but many of them don't have a great, what I would call architecture, where they know where everything is. Everything's in one place, in its place, and you know where it is, you know how to get it. It might be in more than one place, but not 100. And people know where to go to get the data that they need to do their job. And the data is clean, it's well performing, it's managed so that you can trust it and believe in it. And you know it's up to date, it's current. And so these things are, though they sound so basic, but they're hard to attain. And now we're asking our data to be our foundation for artificial intelligence. So there's this whole new wave of applications that we're formulating inside of these enterprises, and they rely on data. So if you don't have your data act together, you're going to have a hard time getting into AI.
You mentioned data quality, and this is also the topic on a lot of minds of people I am talking with recently. And do you have some kind of experience with the project where data quality was pure? It was not so good at the beginning, but after you implemented your solution, it was much better.
I'd say a lot of our implementations are that way. I remember, for example, there was a pharmaceutical distribution company that we worked with, and they were having trouble managing their inventory. They had a lot of stockouts and they had a lot of overstocking. So their expenses were way higher than what they needed to be. And largely it was because the decisions were made based upon erroneous data that was late arriving. So you had to make decisions just based upon what you projected that real-time data
Mm-hmm.
was going to be. And also
Mm-hmm.
the data was not coming in from all of the sources the way that it was supposed to on a
Mm-hmm.
nightly basis. Inevitably, one or two of the 100 sources would not send the data for various reasons, technical,
Mm-hmm.
material, and otherwise. They just weren't sending the data, and so it was almost always incomplete on a daily basis. That needed to get fixed. And once we were able to do that part, this company was able to optimize its inventory levels, reduce stockouts by 30%, and overstocking by 25%. This was millions and millions of dollars that went right to the bottom.
So how did you start? Like basically, you mentioned that the data wasn't produced or delivered in efficient way. Like, where do you start in this company as the step one to make sure that at the end the data was delivered accordingly?
Well, step one is we talk to the business people, that is,
Mm-hmm.
users of the data, and we find out what their expectations are of data.
Mm-hmm.
And then we profile the data. and we see how is it matching up to those expectations. Note, I did not say that we take a data profiling tool and we just throw it at the data first, because that's going to give you so much information. You're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to pick on the easy things to do, which may or may not really make much of a difference. So that's why we want to find out from the business what is going to make a difference here. If such and such data was wrong or late, or you just couldn't trust it for a variety of reasons, what would that mean to what you're trying to accomplish here? In this case, the supply chain. What would that mean to supply chain costs? When you're able to make that connection and put a dollar sign on it, then the whole company mobilizes around trying to improve that metric once you have that number. So getting that number is very important.
And how did you get this number? It was some kind of workshop analysis of the data you have, interviews with people. How basically you come up with this?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, workshops. Yes, a little trial and error, a little A/B testing, and so on. I have taken this as far as actually taking it to the field and testing out bad data versus good data in different regions and looking at the performance of different marketing activities. But in this case, we didn't have to quite go that far. The people knew. The director of the distribution area, he knew. He had already been thinking about this. And he felt like there was nothing he could do because nobody was listening. Data quality, it is what it is, and these sorts of things. So really, by talking to the people that should know in the business and bringing out the right questions and driving to that number. Now, is the number perfect? Are we all, 100% that that's the number? No, but it gets us in the ballpark, and it actually spins up the activity that we need in order to improve data quality. So that's what I was aiming at.
So this was the start, like making sure that you have a correct number to show, like if something will happen, this number of cost will disappear, of the revenue will appear, if I'm not mistaken. And this was the first part. The second part is like persuading stakeholders inside the company to make the decision to implement next steps, right? Or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then what are we going to do about it? What's the ROI on doing something about it? Well, there might be a data quality tool involved. There's obviously some work effort by people, but no, it doesn't go too far beyond that. We're not talking about introducing new data stores and things like this, unless things are really out of whack. In this case, it was mostly the work effort. And what was that going to do? That was going to improve the data quality. And I think this is another important point about data quality is you measure it. You can put a grade on your data quality. And given that we understood what that number was that we just talked about, we were able to show that if we improve the data quality, and really, you don't have to improve it by much, 1 percentage point goes a long way when you're talking about different things like predictive maintenance and fraud detection and targeted marketing. All these things could use 1 point movement in data quality, and that would well more than pay for data quality efforts. You just got to know what you're doing.
And how much time the project take? Like from the start, from the end, like you mentioned, like having this number, talking with the different stakeholders, and how much time it take to finish, to finish the project?
Yeah, it's important to know that these are ongoing in nature. Never done. But there is a point at which you take something to production and you can raise the flag and say, okay, now we're in production. Now we want to see some results. And then there's obviously a lag until you see those results, measure those results, socialize those results, and so on. So I would say we're talking in this case on the order of like 4 or 5 months to solid improvement. And that includes a lot of the upfront time spent just trying to get your budget together, get your people together, pick the tool and all the things that you have to do up front in order to get into a project like this.
Okay,
but
so
that's good turnaround for a data project.
I think so too. You mentioned data quality. You mentioned also data architecture at the beginning. Do you have some kind of examples on that, on the project in this area?
Yeah, I think data architecture, it's almost like a dirty word in many organizations. Organizations are good at doing applications and getting things done, but sometimes they leave behind a mess that it's not leverageable to other projects. So you build your architecture because management says, get this thing done. Do predictive maintenance. So where's the data coming from? Okay, I'll build my own database. I'll pull data from here, there, and everywhere. Forget about, building a common data warehouse or data lake for everybody to use, and building master data in there like customer and product and things like this so that everybody can use it. It's fully adjudicated, governed, and all that. It's pretty much heads down, let's get our application up and running and get this target. And so when you do that, you are not considering data architecture. Somebody should be considering data architecture, and projects should adhere to enterprise standards around data architecture in order to have efficiency. While, that approach might get you to your end game really quick, and it might work, you're talking about long-term efficiencies of that company. You're going to be reinventing the wheel every project. And so you are burdening every downline project when you act like that. So this is why data architecture is really something that many organizations are lacking that would help them out quite a bit.
So, what do you propose to they should do? Like they have this goal, like you said, to achieve. Like let's go, let's do this. But before this goal, or before thinking about achieving this goal, what they should implement in the process to make sure that the data architecture is correct. What they should do in your experience?
Yeah, this is more complicated than ever. And it takes someone with a breadth of knowledge about many data disciplines. There are more data disciplines today than ever. And the job of the data architect in an enterprise is harder than ever. And I think it's only going to stay that way for quite a while before things settle down and it gets more stable. And we see architectures emerging. We see frameworks emerging from companies like AWS or Microsoft or Google. So with frameworks like that, that can be sort of a foundation of your architecture, and then you can add on from there. Although I do recommend companies seriously consider a best of breed architecture, because each piece, if not optimized, will cause some degradation of the overall ROI of data. So today that means you have to look at data streaming. You have to look at data observability. What's your game plan for data science? What about vector databases? Do you have a data catalog? See, it's way more than source data, data warehouse, and business intelligence tools today. It is really a vast ecosystem that must be managed.
What do you think about some kind of playbooks for the people wanting to implement data infrastructure in some way? Like, or you maybe thought about something like that. Like, if they want to concentrate of data streaming and the data governance in some way, like they have like this kind of framework with playbook with frameworks or ideas to use. And do you have something like that in mind, or what's your approach about that?
I think that is great. I think that every company should be researching on an ongoing basis frameworks and deciding which ones make sense in your organization. But keep in mind, it's dynamic, it's a moving target, it is changing, and you have to stay on top of it. And you have to make sure that adherence happens in the company, because if there's no adherence to all these great, standards that the data architecture team is putting out there, then there's no point in any of it. So the only caution I would have, or the big caution I would have about these frameworks that you might be thinking about, is if they're from one vendor, obviously all that vendor's products are going to be in there, and that may or may not be what you want. So a framework is not products. A framework is you're going to have a category of product here, a category there. They're going to interoperate in this way, and it leaves it open for you to pick your data warehouse, your data lake, your data streaming platform, et cetera, in kind of a plug and play fashion. So for something like that, yeah, I'm all for it. And really, a lot of them are very helpful in giving you a jump start on your data architecture.
And what do you think about playbooks created internally, or some kind of documents created internally for the data architecture? Like, how would you approach this subject to have the most benefit for the people inside the company from the business side and also from the technical side?
I think you have to look at the body of frameworks and technical information out there from the lens of your enterprise. What is the industry we're in? What is the position in the industry that we're in? Are we taking big risks here, or are we trying to be steady state, and so on? There's a number of dimensions that you want to be looking at, all the technical possibilities out there. And you do have to customize. But I guess my challenge with that is many times I'll come into a company and they'll give me standards that they want to live by, but two things. One is they're not following the standards, and
Surprise,
two
surprise.
is they were built 5 years ago before AI.
Hmm.
And now you have so much more that you need to do with it. So it's living, breathing, dynamic. You have to stay on top of it and you're never done. You have to communicate this to the enterprise because they think, well, last year you told us we have to do it this way. So we're doing it this way. Well, no, things change now and we're asking for something different. So no two projects are going to be the same. That's the era that we're in, a very dynamic era of high amounts of change.
What do you think should be the person responsible for making sure that this documentation is correct? Like from your experience inside the companies, like it should be one person, it should be a group of the people. What do you think like would be the best approach to make sure that documentation is updated correctly and have enough knowledge for example, for you or some other people, going from outside to the company and trying to help them. Who should be responsible for that in your
The person or persons with the skill sets required, meaning they have knowledge of all of the disciplines that I mentioned
Mhm,
and more. And I always advocate for this. The importance of this is such that it should have visibility in the C suite. Now,
mhm,
I also advocate in big enterprises for a chief data architect. That's right, a C-level person that
mhm.
is responsible for this. Obviously, that person would have some staff as well. It's that important. So the higher the better, and the more adherence you're going to get with something like this. So I think it's important to have it not just be, somebody who does applications and let me do a little of this on the side. It's a dedicated role in a larger company and even an upper mid-sized company. It's a dedicated role and it should have very high visibility.
Yeah, because it helps along the way with the creation of other AI project, with making sure that data quality is enough for the project. Like without this person, without this guidance, no matter who it was, I like the idea of chief data architect on the on the C level, and I liked it a lot because I think like having this kind of person inside the company and their knowledge and their experience, it could be very beneficial for project which are delivered inside or which are outsourced to different companies outside the company which have this chief data architect. Okay, we mentioned data quality, we mentioned data architecture. Do you have some kind of other areas you would like to talk about and you think is important for enterprises to look at?
I think today it's important to go beyond data visualization, dashboards, business intelligence, and the like, and definitely allow the algorithms to do what humans cannot do and go well
Mm-hmm.
beyond human capabilities, obviously human guided. But an example would be there was a bank we worked with that they use predictive analytics, machine learning algorithms, that is, to analyze transaction data and
Mm-hmm.
identify fraudulent patterns in the data that they happen so quick that it really must be machine learning guided, and the fraud techniques are becoming so sophisticated that you have to have a system that learns and is taught as well that such and such a pattern is fraudulent and should be stopped early in the process. This is machine learning, and this is machine learning on great data inside an enterprise. So there's organizations in enterprises that are responsible for the data, bringing that data to the algorithms and then applying the algorithms as well to that data so that it's accomplishing the big things for the company that just aren't going to happen otherwise in a modern way.
You mentioned dashboards. Do you have examples of what perfect dashboard should look like for decision maker?
I am not really a great UI person myself. So the dashboards that I build that I think are great look kind of boring to a lot of end users. So I like to just work with them and work with them in an iterative basis so that it gets to a graphical point that makes sense for them. Now, fortunately, there's a lot of tools today. I think about master data management tools and how they bring the data to the data stewards. The tools are very fungible. So you can create a UI that works. It's just a matter of sitting down and working with the end users and even just giving them the capability to do their own. I think we're doing a lot of that today. So I don't think that a person like me or somebody in a central organization should be building dashboards. That should be out with the users, but they need a helping hand. They need to get started. They need some guidance. I get all that. But once you give that to them, then they should be able to take it forward from there.
You mentioned AI also. Like, I'm curious how you are using AI in your day-to-day work. Do you have some kind of experience with that? Like how you are, for example, using AI to make your day-to-day work faster? You have some examples on that?
I mean, I don't know that I'm different from a lot of people in the industry. I use my, chat GPTs and so forth, just really to answer questions and get ideas. I think you'd be just operating very inefficiently if you don't use those tools, right? But I'm a little bit old school in terms of my writing. I like to just write straight, from the heart, as it were, and let the chips fall where they may, and keep that human touch in it. But there's a lot of things that AI is very helpful with. Even, I run a consulting organization, so even prospecting, ensuring adherence to contracts, both for us and the client, analyzing legal documents, and looking at, okay, what's different from this NDA versus the last 10 that I had. I don't want to read the whole thing, but what's different that I should be focused on, So there are a lot of little things like that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you so much for being a part of DDM, the DDDM podcast, and being a guest and answering all my questions and sharing your knowledge with all of us.
Sure thing. Anytime, Lucas.